Hello, this is Werewolf the Podcast, and we are on episode 110. I don't know why I've gone all posh. Housekeeping as usual at this point. In the description that goes with the podcast are a number of things you can do to get more information or join the Werewolf the Podcast community. There you go, we've got a community. The Facebook group is full of amazing people and other things that help. Well, you can actually help direct some of the stories as we go along. If you want some input, then go there. Oh, yeah, we recently saved people and stuff, yeah. I'm also on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram if you want to join me there. You can also support the show by following the Support the Show links in the description. There are books and stuff and links and things to buy. You can buy Gregory's A Lupo there and Fenrir's Biography of My Life. They're both available to buy there. Please do yourself a favour and buy and read them. They're good. How can how can you not? Because apparently they're good. They're good shit. How can you get good shit? I don't know, but apparently you can. So, you've listened to all the preceding Viking Werewolf episodes, have you not? If you've not, you will at least have to listen to the one preceding this for it to make a lot of sense. Thorstein has landed on Holy Island with a crew of raiders. Now let's see what is happening. Oh, and the Boogaloo's theme song was suggested by Ronald French on the Facebook group. Brilliant. The screaming and the yelling start as I step into the church like the giant wolfman I am. We stand ahead and more above even my own warriors. The darkness of the pelt that swathes my body is blacker than my soul. My eyes burn yellow as the pits of fire in my wolfen head. Slavering jaws with finger-long teeth growl as I enter the room with a confident swagger. There seems to be some sort of religious leader standing out in front of his pack of braying people. I suppose he's the head priest or something. He stands before me presenting a golden cross and squawking at me some baffling things in a language I can almost grasp. He seems very firm and he has a lot of righteous indignation and believes that the thing he holds before him will have some level of protection. He shouts so vehemently that spittle cascades from his mouth as he yells his words in my direction. We form a little bubble of focus at the centre of all the madness that is going on around us in this space. My senses smell blood and hear the screams and the groans of the Saxons with the laughter and the threats of the Vikings. He holds me back for a moment just with the power of his belief in that piece of junk that he's got before him. I feel the strength of his faith as a physical wave stopping me from moving forward for a moment. Then I move forward into his personal space with a snarl. We hold eye contact. He has some kind of power I cannot put my finger on. Can he have such faith in his God that he has some strength unknown from that? Is his God actually helping him at this point? I check myself for a moment as I think this through. No, it's all in my mind, in our mind. He's just a man and his God has done nothing so far to help him and his people. His power, if any, is in my head, not in his own. A chuckle comes from Fen in the back of my mind as he mocks my insecurity. It was insecurity, but I'll be damned if I admit I was insecure. Just questioning the situation is okay. I wasn't worried. I was just interested in how powerful their God truly was. Not powerful enough in this case. The man is amazing. I have to admit it. He has been uttering his rage for some time now and seems to be able to continue indefinitely. Amazing. Fen, obviously, tells me to kill him and be done with it, but he is just truly fascinating to me. I want to see how long he can keep up this extreme stream of consciousness at me. The real world then suddenly comes back into play. Murder and violence go on all around us as people are beaten and removed from the church. The women offer more of a fight than the men. They've more to lose in this scenario than the men. The men are either cowardly or would rather be struck down in this building than fight. I don't understand their thinking. People in various states are taken and lined up in the dusty space before the church doors, alive, dead, and dying. A woman is dragged between us, screaming by the hair. She's already half naked, and her finery and societal position have not helped her in here. In fact, if I know my men, then her status will make it much worse for her. She is young, pretty, and a worthy prize, an evening's comfort for at least one of my men, if not for many of them. With a snap of her fingers, her life has become something entirely different, from noble to slave in the drop of a sword. A smile. We can take and change anything. The priest pretends he does not notice his lamb being dragged by him, although he quietens for a moment as his eyes dart to her as she reaches for him, begging for help. The righteous bastard just keeps vomiting forth his voice. The Viking warrior dragging the girl looks at the man and swings a sword to hack down the priest. I catch his wrist and stop the trajectory of the blade. At first, Alder is angry with my action. He turns to me with furious eyes. It's fucking impressive. He shows that even I would be on his list of things to do if the situation was right. But then he smiles, shrugs, laughs, and gently kicks the woman, kicks her hard in the face, silencing her before dragging her limp, mewling body towards the door. I reach up and remove the priest's ridiculous high hat from where it's perched on his head and throw it behind him as I bring my face closer and closer to his. I can feel the gobbets of spit and the fervour of his speech on my face now as he continues to yell his nonsense. He closes his eyes and continues with what I assume are prayers. I reach for the cross he holds before him. It takes him 2 hands to hold it because of the thing's weight. His arms are both shaking with fear and exhaustion at holding the small but heavy item. As he opens his eyes, I look at him and then the cross with interest, scratching a forefinger and clawing down the piece. It is so soft that it surprises me. Can it be pure gold? Can it? This room is full of treasures, and now I'm somewhat distracted by those things around me. What must the value of the contents of this place be? Again, my mind wanders at what we've found in this unprotected place. It's enough wealth to build so many raiders. The Ostmen will line up to be my crew when they see the returns on this one little outing. The screams and shouts mix with the laughter of my crew as I am snapped back again into the here and now. I look wonderfully, and Fenrir in my head gives me a shout of excitement. How many boats and how many warriors will this pay for? How much power will this give me? The priest stops for a moment. He's looking at the ground as the pool of blood from our work starts to touch his raiment of white and starts to discolour his satin slippers. He lifts the hem and steps away from the flood in disgust and shock, shaking free drops of the congealing fluid from his feet. He seems to care for his clothing more than his flock. Let's see what reaction I can get from this man. I squat and run a paw through the thickening pool, collecting the fluid, and then step forward. I reach out a bloody clawed hand in slow motion in his direction, and he flinches away from it. His retreat finally stops by a pillar at his back. I catch him there and enjoy smearing blood on him and his holy garb, covering the embroidery and the finery in life's final fluid. The look of disgust is incredible. He does not want to be touched by the bloody paw, and he turns his head away from my hand as I grab his fat, jowly face with my grip. His face is now dirty with his congregation's contents, quite literally. He shakes and then shits. His God has fucked him off. His faith breaks. He's been abandoned to this. I enjoy these times more than any. That moment when the strength of a man is lost. They break, and the heart and the soul fail. Physical pain is fun, but wrecking a mind and a belief is so much more rewarding. I have crushed his faith. He goes silent and is broken in that moment. I wave over Magnus and Nut to take the man. Now that the fun has stopped, he is of no more interest to me, and he will make a fun slave for someone. Can you imagine the fall and the humiliation that the man will have to live with when he's enslaved? The men stand on either side of him, and he looks confused at me. I smile and lift the cross gently from his hands. He watches it go, glassy-eyed and confused. I look at the crucifix, taking it to my mouth where I bite down on it. It is so soft. The man seems to think that I'm going to consume the cross or something. Maybe a demon would. He stands open mouth, an impassive stare on that fat face. I nod at Magnus, and he slaps the man's face and throws him to the floor on his front. He then uses the golden rope from his dress to tie his hands roughly. Kneeling on the man's back, the man wheedles and screams. His body and his face are rolled around in the puddle created by his congregation before he has the shock of meeting the dead eyes of one of his little flock as she lies still on the desecrated ground. The side of her head is caved in and a smashed jaw hangs at a strange angle. He's only inches away from her, and then the woman's eyes move and lock on his for a second. She is destroyed, but she is still living. She gurgles and bubbles, horrifically wounded and not long for this world. But in that moment, she looks to him again for the help that she thinks he can give her. More mental torture for the man. I love it when these unplanned moments come along. He screams and screams and screams, a cowardly scream. I lose all respect in that one moment. Nut looks concerned and in wonder at what the man is screaming at. He sees the woman still living and gurgling, so he removes the dagger from his belt and with slow surety cuts her neck from ear to ear to allow her to go. Nut has such a soft side to him that I don't get, but to be honest, he's a great warrior, so I won't say anything about these actions. Silence falls now in the church as it's emptied of the living. A few are dead. It wouldn't be right not to kill some. The yard is full of a braying herd of the captured as I walk from the doors into the light. The screams and the terror return to the people as they look upon my magnificence. I'm not being arrogant. I'm fucking magnificent. They shrink back from me and cover their eyes. I roar, and this seems to quell them for a moment. A pile of the broken and the dead is to the left of me. I remember the crucifix in my hand and lifting it to the sky. The Vikings cheer as I change back to my human form, and Fenrir runs off into the church to sniff out anything worth sniffing out, I suppose. There will always be those that are hidden from us on purpose. They are often the sweetest meats. Young people are hidden from us for their own safety. Fen will find them for us before we burn the building and any that we do not find. As the slaves are left kneeling and crying in the dirt, the hall is emptied of anything we think is valuable. A pile is left by the door, and we all realise that the hall is going to be worth so much more than the slaves we've taken. I start to shout orders. Keep nothing under 2 winters or over 50 winters, I tell the warriors, watching those that have been captured. 2 of my crew draw daggers and move into the now kneeling crowd and start to dispatch the old and the 2 young with quick and precise cuts. They all die quickly. They all seem ready for their journey. A woman tries to stop Hod from dispatching her father, but she reels back as a hefty boot strikes her in the side of the head. The others settle at this display of violence, although they cry and bemoan about the act. One man stands to his feet and starts to point and shout at me. He's angry, and I can tell he's been pushed too far by the happenings around him. His woman, I assume, has just relinquished her babe to Hod, giving the child gently and carefully to Hod with a last kiss on its warbling forehead. The Viking smiles at her as he wrings its neck before returning it to her, silent. She falls back on it, shrieking and crying, and Hod looks at me with interest, then the man who is gesticulating madly in my direction, then points at Hod, who looks somewhat perplexed. I think he's confused as to what's happening. Should the man not have attacked Hod by now? Not stood and just shouted at him, he'd just killed his baby. This continues as we all stare. Why doesn't he attack? I smile at Hod and then nod. He hits the man on the back of the head with the butt of his axe, forcing him down as he strikes him again and again until he's quiet and still. Hod looks at me and shrugs. No, I don't get it either. Should he not have fought for his child? What on earth are these Saxons like? It's just weird. Once the newly taken slaves are settled, we have to start to empty the rest of the golden glory from the church. We pile it next to the doors like children. There are too many gifts to take. The twins have found a young monk beneath the tapestry. They've had a bet about whether or not the monks are men. One is convinced that men would not behave like this or look the way they do. This monk is young and clean-shaven with short hair. He has a robe and is very skinny. He starts yelling as the two men hold him down and start to cut his clothes for him to investigate what is beneath. One is disappointed as the other laughs as they point at the man's poor little shriveled penis. He lies there naked before them. An arm talk is passed between the Vikings begrudgingly as the crying monk is led away from the scene of his first humiliation. It will just be his first. The room is still full of gold and rare stones. I've never seen anything like this. The men are ripping the tapestries from the wall before piling the treasures upon them, ready for them to be dragged from the room. Eyes glitter with the reflections of wealth and beauty that they lift carefully, placing the items gently onto the tapestry mats. As the beautiful tapestries are turned into drag mats filled with treasure, we get our new slaves to drag them to the boats. Slowly. It takes a few to drag each haul, but steadily we get all we think is worth to the boats. The boats are loaded very carefully. Wolf then comes to me with a problem we have. The weight of the loot is so much that we won't really have room for many of the slaves. As we are distracted, a man rises to his feet to run. His arm is hacked off at the elbow by a Viking, who kicks him to the floor. He then swings his axe in his other hand, cutting through the man's shin and removing his foot just above the ankle. The poor Saxon wails and screams as the warrior stands over him with an utter look of revulsion. The poor thing is horror-filled and starts to quieten as his energy starts to fail. Blood pools in the sand, and the slaves around him react in many different ways. Some stare with open dead eyes at the man. Some shout and fall to the floor. Some look away. One of them points and laughs, trying to ingratiate himself with his captors. None try to run to the man to aid him. This is good. They realise that they are all lost. I find that this is the best way to get people to fall in line. Always have hugely significant consequences for people's actions. Death is not enough. Once the boats are laid and we're ready to go, we burn all that is left. The cowards in the tower are left. They can live with themselves and tell this story to those that come after we've gone. We have a difficult decision now on how many slaves we take. We can only take 40, so we'll have to take those of the most value. This is always difficult, as you don't know what will be in demand at the market. I don't think the monks are worth much, but Woolston points out that most are literate, and that a few of them should be kept because this can be very valuable to the more noble buyers. You know, the ones who've got money. We choose the 5 most healthy-looking monks. The rest are rounded up and taken back to the church. Women are separated from the men that are left. 10 of the strongest men are fully bound before being laid at the bottom of the boats. These are the ones we would expect the most trouble from, so we will need to completely incapacitate them so they do not offer any fight in the night. The women are kept at the beach. They will be of use this night. The rest of the unwanted are again taken to the church where they're forced inside and held there with the monks. The wooden furniture inside the building has been broken up and doused in the church's store of lamp oil. The crowd in the church are begging and crying for help. Many are knocked nonsensical or just injured beyond argument. Legs are broken so that they cannot stand or move. The children huddle together in one corner with the old unwanted women who coo at them, trying to hush their crying. I like the crying. All the Ostmen leave the gigantic room apart from myself. I stand before the crowd. I am now dressed and loom over the little group. I soak in the emotions that they give me: horror, dread, hate, loss of hope. all of them wash from them, and Fen and I soak them in as fuel. They're fuel for us. Who would not enjoy this level of power? I walk to the small exit where Hod waits eagerly with a burning torch. His head pokes around the door as he tries to get a glimpse of our prisoners. For Odin, I tell him as he passes me the torch, which I throw with an underhand swing into the oil pool at the base of the pile of broken furniture. It lights with a whoosh and a thrill that shoots up my spine. I look quickly at Fen next to me. The beast's eyes glitter with the flames as they dance in those beautiful eyes before I turn my back to the growing blaze. The monks are now giving no prayers. They shout and scream, backing away from the fire, flapping at it as it greedily starts to eat the wood it has been given to feed upon. They run from it as the heat builds and the smoke pools in the hall ceiling. Such joy it brings. Such joy. These weak things deserve no life. One man rushes towards the door and I kick him backwards where he falls into the burning pool as it creeps from beneath the fire. His robes catch the light as he tries to stand. His hands burn in the fire as he lifts himself, a screaming human torch. He flaps and burns before again falling and not moving. The heat is now getting too intense for us to maintain our view, and the room is lost in the blaze and the haze as I slam the door and the screams, bracing it with logs before turning my back on the cheers of my men. They raise their voices to the gods. Thorstein! 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 These men worship me at this moment, and my posset Fen is proud and laughs at the excitement that surrounds us. We drink looted beer, looted wine from looted golden cups as we watch the building burn. The screams of those trapped are now lost to the beast's roar as it consumes the church's content. A cheer of celebration for our victory is raised as the roof falls in, and ashes and embers fly into the night to add to those already starting to light the darkening sky. We will camp on the beach this night before we leave at first light. Thanks for listening, you dirty heathens. Love you all. Next week, I think we're going to come back to modern times for a bit. I think we can move on from the Viking story for a little while and come back to it in the future. What do you think? Why not respond to this question at all those social fucking things? I don't know what, those, yeah. Anyway, last of all, of course, as I always say, love you, bye.